Hi friends, I'm Pastor Diana. Welcome to a daily devotion. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend some time out of what is probably a busy day with God. This week, during the season of Lent, we are exploring the theme of giving it up. Giving what up? Various things in our lives that are more meaningful and actually harder to give up than chocolate or other things. And instead, when we give those up, we make room and space for other things. This week we are exploring expectations and giving up expectations, and instead making room and space for faith. We've been exploring the story of Abram and Sarai, or Abraham and Sarah. Now, this is a really complex story, and I want to read a little bit of a section that I think sometimes that can teach us about the danger of having expectations and trying to control things rather than giving up things and giving those things up to God. Now, in the story, Abram and Sarai and Lot have left their home. They have journeyed. They've gone down to Egypt where they survived a famine, and they are back in the land that God has promised to them. God has promised to them that they will be a great nation with many, many descendants. Except Abram and Sarai are very old, and they have yet to have a child, a son. And in this time, having a child was, I can't even overstate the vitalness and the importance. And in Sarai's only role in life, her calling was to provide children. And if she couldn't do that, then everything that God had promised, they saw no way forward. And so, because they have these expectations about what it means, what has to happen for God's promises to be fulfilled, which is namely have a biological child of their own, Abram and Sarai get impatient because they feel these expectations have to fit in a box, and then they make a harmful decision. And we hear about that in chapter 16. Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to have children. Since she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar, Sarai said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from giving birth, so go to my servant. Maybe she will provide me with children." Abram did just as Sarai said. After Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Abram's wife Sarai took her Egyptian servant Hagar and gave her to her husband as his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she became pregnant. Yeah, that feels a little problematic. So here's a woman with power who's giving her servant or slave to her husband to fulfill the expectations. And how well do you think that works out? Not very well. While Hagar does get pregnant and have Ishmael, it causes family disputes and it causes harm to Hagar and to Ishmael. This is not good. And all of this is because Sarai and Abram, both of them, are trying to fulfill God's expectations in their little box because they haven't examined what it means for God to give them many descendants. They haven't examined what this promise means. They haven't trusted God. Instead, they have very specific expectations of what it means, but they aren't willing to look at them. And that's something we all do. Brené Brown in Atlas of the Heart calls them stealth expectations. These expectations that we carry but that we don't articulate, and then when things don't go as planned, we have big reactions to them because somehow other people or ourselves or society or organizations don't meet these expectations that we have, but we've never clearly articulated them or stated them, or they're different than what everybody else's expectations are. These types of expectations, these stealth expectations, I find trip me up all the time. And so I wonder, what stealth expectation has tripped you up recently? How can you offer that to God and ask God to help you not let that expectation trip you up or trip other people up and cause harm? Instead, how can you have faith around God's calling and blessings, even when things are murky and take a long time? What does it mean to have faith in the things hoped for and not yet seen? And what self-expectation should you give up? I invite you to consider it, write it down, share it, or pay attention today for some self-expectations in your life and offer those up to God. Will you pray with me? Oh God, help me to see. Help me to see clearly the expectations that trip me up, and help me to examine them so that I do not cause harm in the world. Help me to trust in your blessings. Amen. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of giving up expectations. One expectation we hope to fulfill is that we will have one more devotion. And if you like this, leave us a like, give us a thumbs up, or make a comment below. Most of all, have a blessed day.